Welcome to the next episode of CNMI Speaks Out. CNMI Speaks Out is about domestic violence and CNMI culture. With this podcast, we will hear stories of brave women who overcame domestic violence and know more about their cultural upbringing. I'm your host, Jennifer Taman, and today we have the privilege of hearing our guest's story. However, for safety and confidentiality purposes, our guest's identity will remain anonymous. So, guests, welcome and thank you so much for being here and sharing with us your story. Okay, before we start, I'd just like to give our listeners a warning. For today's episode, we will be having a conversation to someone who was once a perpetrator. Therefore, there might be topics or conversation throughout this podcast that might be triggering for some of our listeners out there. Please kindly be advised. So, can you tell us a little bit about your story? How and when did your relationship started? How would you describe your relationship?
Sorry. Hi, my name. Once upon a time, I was someone people would call perpetrator. My relationship started back when I was in my mid-20s. I met. I'm sorry. I met this girl at the college up the hill, and I really liked her. It was a very new feeling for me. I never felt that way towards anyone or towards my exes. So to cut the story short, I was madly in love with her. So I made her my girlfriend. Then we started to live together, had a baby together. You know your typical love story. But in this story, I was the villain. I was the monster. I was the one that hurt her the most. She once told me in our relationship, how can I say I love her with all my heart, have a baby with her, build a family with her, but I treat her so bad? She once asked me, what did I love? Why did I love her? If I only love her because she was the only person that puts up with my look. Looking back, sometimes when I think about those questions and the things I did when we were in a back when we were in a relationship, it breaks my heart. I have so much regret what kind of person I must be to hurt someone that I love and someone that loved me back. But back then, sorry, that's not how I was thinking. My mentally my mentally so is so different. You know, back back then I didn't understand that. Back then I didn't understand that if you love someone, it doesn't mean that you control everything about them. And I was that person. I was so controlling. Everywhere she goes, I always want to be the part of it. When she goes to work, I have to be the one to drop her and pick her up. And if she's not out by that time she said she's getting off, I'm already thinking she's doing something behind my back. And I would fight with her. I was such a jealous person. I have so much insecurities. Whenever she wants to go out with her friends, I would tell no, cause she needs to watch her baby. And if she argues with me, I will fight with her. Call her names like useless mothers and etc. etc. I was such a pathetic person that I used our own child for her not to go anywhere. For me, for me, for me back then, if I'm not around her, she's not around me, she's already doing something behind my back, like cheating on me. Her friends were only allowed to come to our house, but eventually they just stopped coming over. My jealousy took a hold of me, and it made me so angry. I was so afraid to lose her, but instead of fighting for her not to leave me, I fight with her that drove her to leave me. I always get mad at her if she spoke to a guy or a guy coworker, or even if a guy looks at her. I will fight with her, and sometimes I cannot control my emotions, especially when she tells me that she wants out of the relationship. Because of my anger, I end up hitting her not once but a lot of fucking times. Especially when I'm drunk, something takes over me, and I become this person. So I am so abusive. I I blame her for everything that's wrong with me. If we're broke up, if we're broke, it's her fault. If the food is not cooked on time, it's her fault. If I don't have beer, it's her fault. My insecurities, it's her fault too. If I'm not hitting her, I'm shouting insults at her. I was a horrible person. I don't know I don't know how she puts up with me, but I regret everything I did to her. I know saying sorry is not enough, but I'm truly sorry for what I put her through. I'm sorry that I hurt her that much. It hurts my heart just talking about this. I can't talk about it anymore. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can really see the pain and regret in your eyes as I'm looking at you, and I think it's also important that you acknowledge the things that happened in your relationship. I think that's one important step to take, even for me as a survivor and during my healing process. I mean, I'm still healing, but in the early stages of it, it was something that I thought I needed to heal forward, was acknowledgement from the other party, but sometimes you don't get that as a victim, and which is fine because healing starts from within, right? So but however, I'm glad that you acknowledge what occurred during your relationship with your partner, and i'm sure that I'm sure that in many ways that brought healing to her and for you as well. So someone who admits, or someone who calls themselves perpetrator, can you please kindly bring us back, if you can, when and how did the abusing started?
Man, I don't know when it started. All I know is that ever since the beginning, I was always so jealous. But the thing is, with my other ex girlfriend, I was never this jealous. Only with her. My jealousy was always the problem in the relationship. We would always argue, and one time the argument got so heated up. She was saying she was gonna leave me, so I grabbed her by the hand and backslapped her. Then after that, I just got so much worse. There was one time I beat her up bad enough that she didn't get to go to work for a couple of days.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, that was because she took the car and come home late. Still, that doesn't give me a reason to do that.
Did she call the cops on you that time?
No, because after it, I apologized to her and I begged her not to call the police, and I promised her that I would change. But I didn't. Fucking didn't. Me and my empty promises, I was just very lucky she lost me. Otherwise, my ass would be in jail.
Okay. Well, can you describe or explain what might have led up to it?
My my jealousy and my anger issues. I used to have a hard time controlling my anger. I think it's what led up to all the things I did. I know there's more to it, but for me, those two factors are the main reasons for my actions.
So anger issue. So you would say that you have anger issue.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think being able to see one's flaw and owning owning it really shows the person's characteristic. And I'm glad that you were able to do that for yourself. So she didn't call the cops on you because you made her promises. Yeah, I kind of understood her, even if I don't know the whole story, but I kind of understand where she's coming from. Sometimes those promises that our partner will change, that's what we really hold on to. So, how did your partner react to the whole situation?
And honestly, she cried a lot. And to be honest with you, she tried to leave me so many times. But I would stop her. I would always promise her that I would, sorry, I was going to change. I would show her I would be nothing without her too. I would beg her to stay or even cry for her to stay. And if that doesn't work, I would be violent. And I would always tell her that I was going to kill myself she was if if she was gonna leave me. I would do everything in my power to make her stay. Even got to the point that I got her fired because I would call her boss and talk shit about her. I don't know how. I don't know. I don't know. I was just such a toxic person. She was my whole world and never wanted her to leave me. I was scared of what I would. I, I was scared of what would happen to me if she and I broke up. I would I would be I would be good for a few days or months just to show her that I was changing. And yeah, I did try to change, but I just would always go back again to my old ways and was hurtful towards her. In time throughout our relationship, I just got used to it. I mean, she called the cops on me a couple of times for domestic violence, and I spent the night in jail. But the next day or two, she's already calling me, telling that our son needs this, and that. Then we're together again. I would be good for a few days or months just to show her that I was changing. And yeah, I did try to change, but I just went back again to my old ways and was hurtful towards her. It's just become a pattern.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it is a cycle, the cycle of abuse, like sometimes it's so hard to break that cycle. It takes a lot to be able to like say to yourself like I'm enough and I'm done doing this. Yeah, so when did you come to the realization that you were a violent person?
Honestly, during our relationship, after second time I hit her, I knew I was a violent person, or that my anger takes control over me. But did I intend to be violent? No. I was only when my jealousy creeps in or when I get really angry.
Okay, so you're saying that you're jealous, like back again. You're saying that the jealousy and anger has a lot of factors to this.
Yes, that's jealousy is my big problem here right now.
Okay. Did you have any idea of what you were doing in the relationship, or did you ever realize what you were doing?
In some ways, yeah, I knew I was hurting her, and I tried. I swear I tried to be good, but like I said, my jealousy, insecurity, and anger with all together was not a good combination. Seeing my mom get hit by my dad, and her still staying with my dad, some part of me thought it was okay. The couples fight. This is what couples do.
So you're saying that your experience or you witnessing domestic violence in your childhood made you think that this is what couples do, and it was your actions was justified.
Yeah, because I was never like this to my other ex-girlfriend. Just her, and that's because I loved her the most, man. She, she's the mother of my kid, you know. But now I know that I expressed my love for her the wrong way. I should have not done that things I did. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Love is such a powerful emotions, and sometimes it makes us do the things that we don't know we're capable of. I for one can surely attest to that. But, I've learned that there are some limits to loving someone. So, do you recall if your partner at the time asked for help?
Only when she called the cops on me. That other than that, no. She never told anyone. And that I think I was also why I kept doing what I was doing, because I knew she wasn't gonna tell anyone how much of a monster I was. You just don't talk about these things to other people, especially with us, because our family is so big. Everyone knows everybody.
Yeah, with such a small community that I know, and I've been hearing it throughout, like as I talk to other people, I've been hearing it that it's harder for us to talk about certain um, domestic violence, especially because of such a small knit community. Everybody knows everyone. But I hope that one day that barrier can be broken down, and you know that talking about domestic violence would be easier and not having that as a factor. When you realized that you had a problem, did you reach out for help? Did you do anything to change within yourself? If so, what were they?
I knew I was hurting her, and there were times I told myself that I was going to change, but it was hard. It was almost like a pattern. Also, part of me knew she wasn't going to leave me, so I didn't reach out for help. But eventually, after how many years of putting up with my bullshit, she did leave me, and it was the hardest thing I had to go through, losing the love of my life and breaking my family. She finally got fed up and left, and it made me realize that person that I was. So I wanted to become better person, even if we're not together at least for my kid. I got counseling and took anger management class. In some ways, I am thankful for my ex because of her love for me. She didn't put me behind bars. I have a second chance in life, and so I want to make it count and change for the better. Even until now, I haven't dated anyone since my breakup with my ex. I don't see myself in a relationship just yet until I know myself that I've become a better person, and it's been like 5 years.
Okay, so you've been single for 5 years.
Yes.
You're okay. Sorry. So right now, your concentration is working on yourself.
Yes.
So, do you believe that your culture or your cultural upbringing contributed to domestic violence? Why? Can you please explain that?
Yes. In some ways, I have seen my dad hit my mom when I was younger, and she never left him. And in some ways, I thought that it was okay for me to do that too. We never really talked about it too. She never explained to me or talked to me about it. It was like it happened. Then that was it. And so when it was happening to me, when I became my dad, I thought that my girl would never leave me too, and that's something that we just don't talk about.
So, okay, so you're saying that because you witnessed domestic violence in your childhood and it was not talked about, during your talked about in your family, you thought that, what was happening between your partner then, was justified, and, she wouldn't leave you, or, other people outside your home doesn't even know about it, and it was just something that wasn't talked about.
Yeah.
So, what advice do you wish you could have given yourself before the violence began?
To find a better outlet for my anger and to trust my partner. I wish it never happened. Maybe if it didn't, I would still have a happy home.
Yeah. What advice would you give to other survivors or individuals who's a current victim of domestic violence?
That no matter how much you love your boyfriend or girl or wife or husband, once they hit you, leave them because they're gonna keep hurting you. Don't make it a cycle because cycles are hard to break. And ask for help, and ask for help. Talk about it even if you're the perpetrator. Talk about it, and maybe someone will put some sense in your head. Don't hurt anybody, especially the person that loves you physically or emotionally. And being jealous just make you an ugly person. If you love that person, you also have to trust them.
Yeah, trust is very important, in all relationship. That I agree. What advice would you give someone or anyone who is or was a perpetrator?
Stop doing what you're doing right now. Don't be like me or realize things, but it was too late. The person you're with loves you, and you should appreciate and cherish that love. Don't abuse it. Look at what's causing you to act the way and eliminate it in your life. Strive to only make your partner happy.
So, if you could give a message to anyone that you've heard in the past, what would that be?
I just want to say that I'm sorry for my actions. I really regret it. It never meant I, I never meant to hurt anyone, and that I'm paying for it every day. I'm trying, and I will do my best to be a better person in life.
Wow, thank you for that. Thank you for owning to your actions and owning to the things that you've done and being remorseful. What do you wish the CNMI community understood about domestic violence?
I wish for the CNMI community to talk about this more, or encourage people to talk about the domestic violence more. Victims and perpetrators who should be able to come up and say, "I did something bad and I'm sorry for it, and I'm paying for it, and this is what I learned from it." And just more education out there. Go to school and teach the young kids what's a healthy relationship. Teach them that jealousy and anger together is a dangerous mix of self-control. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is important to spread awareness and educate our younger generation the concept of a healthy relationship. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here and taking the time to do this interview with me. Thank you that you are striving to become a better person of you, better version of you, and being so remorseful on your past and your actions. To our listeners out there, although I know this topic might be sensitive, I just hope that you were able to take in a thing or two from our guests, and I myself, in some way, was able to find comfort seeing and hearing our guest's story, and just seeing how remorseful he is. So, well, there you have it. That's the end of this episode. To our listeners out there, hope you all enjoyed today's episode and thank you for tuning in with us. Please come back again next week as we talk more about domestic violence and cinema culture. Lastly, if you are experiencing domestic violence or know someone who might be experiencing domestic violence, please call 911 or Cinemi's Victim Hotline at 670-234-5100. Thank you, and please tune in again next week. The CNMI Speaks Out has been made possible in part by a major grant from the Northern Marianas Humanities Council and the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, finding, conclusion, or recommendation expressed in this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the Northern Marianas Humanities Council or the National Endowment for the Humanities.